All right, looks like the first rush of people are all in. So once again, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, whatever time of day it is in your part of the world. So this is a technical webinar for our upcoming Standby Multi-Platform version 12 preview release. We had the kind of the sales and market and business aspect of it of this release, the seminar for that yesterday. I hope some of you were with us for that. And today is all about a more technical deep dive into the new command line and API components that are a part of this release. These two components are really what this release is about. I hope that you find what you're about to see interesting and maybe even a little bit exciting. So my name is Alex. Hopefully I bear some resemblance to that beautiful marketing photograph. I'm the head of development and product management at dbvisit. And I'm joined by our Oracle Ace superstar, Vijay, who is also head of our customer services. So he's going to be taking you through the deep dive today. I'm just here to give you a quick intro and answer any questions. So again, this version 12 of Standby Multi-Platform doesn't contain any major new database DR related features specifically. Instead, it's all about a new command line, a new API, new ways of using the product that's already there, because we're very much looking to position this for better integration, faster deployment, better automation. It's the 21st century, for crying out loud. So what's important about these features is, for the first time ever, we have a full API available for the product. So when I say full, I mean that everything that we can do from our UI, you can do through our API. You can drive the product for the first time ever 100% remotely, which means that you never have to log into the UI at all if you don't want. The API is all about integrating with your own software and your own tools. I'm sure most of us will agree that in the real world, when you're working with databases, you're supporting customers with databases, Standby Multi-Platform is probably not the only tool you're going to have. And so we wanted to make it easy for you to integrate with your own software suites, with your own dashboards, if you already have those implemented in your business. And finally, it's about extracting information. So again, if you have existing dashboards, existing monitoring tools in place, and you want to use those as opposed to looking at our own dashboard or relying on emails or Slack notifications, then this API is here to help you do that. It's actually possible to reconstruct our in-product dashboard entirely by exfiltrating information using our API from the product. You can build your own dashboard. As far as the command line goes, so those of you who have been with us for a while will know that dbvisit Standby has always had a command line called dbvctl. And this is still supported and will continue to be supported. There are no plans to get rid of it. But that was an Oracle-only command line, and it was a little bit old-fashioned, if I can say that. It made it quite difficult to run some of the more complex actions, and it didn't scale well across deployments. It was quite hands-on, as it were. So with this new command line, it's an all-new syntax, unified across all the database platforms we support. So that's Oracle, SQL Server, and Postgres at this time. It has full no prompt or dynamic interactive modes, and the interactive mode is actually really, really cool. It allows you to run even the most complex actions in a way that's quite user-friendly, even in the command line. And it presents new functionality that previously just wasn't available at all. All kinds of cool features around dealing with enabling and disabling log shipping for maintenance intervals, implementing your own scripts, a whole bunch of stuff. It's all in the documentation. And finally, just a quick mention before we move on is, of course, time doesn't stand still, and so every major release of our product has some upgrades, some general upgrades, general bug fixes, quality of life improvements, and version 12 will absolutely have these as well. So we've got some great new data retention management policies in place that massively reduce the size of the repositories used by our own product, so that we don't use as much disk space on your production systems. big improvements in performance for the UI and for SQL Server when you're dealing with large numbers of databases as well. So this is all for what we're about to look at today. Is the version 12.0 preview. So this is we've decided to call this the preview release. This is not a public release. It's not intended to be installed on customer production systems. However, it is feature complete. So the purpose of this release is for you folks to start having a look at it, start training, start looking at documentation, start trialing some deployments and integrations with the CLI and API. And then the full release, if you like, of version 12 will be launching in February next year. It will be pretty much identical in terms of features to what we're about to look at today. It's just that it will be launching as 12.1 instead of 12.0 preview. So a couple of very quick slides just to give you a very high-level idea as to how this all comes together, and then I'll hand over to Vijay, who's going to give you the lowdown on how this stuff actually looks in real life. So what you're looking at right now is a high-level diagram of how our new CLI and API interacts with the Oracle platform. I might just turn my screen brightness down a little bit so you can see me. There we go. So at the bottom, of course, is your database, and above that sits what I referred to earlier, DBVCTL. So this is our Oracle interfacing component, and that component is also the one that contained the legacy command line. So that component is still there. It hasn't gone away. It's still there. The implementation of Oracle functionality is still the same as it was in version 11. On top of that sits our internal components, since our internal API and our control center and agent managers, exactly the same as it is on version 11 again. And this new CLI and new API that I've been talking about and that we're about to get into sit on top of that. So basically you can think of our own UI that I hope most of you are familiar with. That together with the new command line and the new API are basically equal like-for-like components in the sense that they all sit on top of the rest of the technical stack and all interface with it in the same way. So what that means is, again, back to what I was saying, anything we can do through our own UI, through our own GUI, you can do through the new command line and the new API. So to compare that a little bit to the way it works on Postgres, for Postgres, we don't have a DBVCTL component because that functionality that to interface with Postgres databases, Postgres clusters, is actually built into our DBV Agent Manager and DBV control modules. So we don't need that extra layer. But again, the new command line, the API, and the UI, they all access the tech stack from the top level in exactly the same way. Anything you can do in one, you can do in the other. I think that's about as much high-level abstract stuff as it makes sense to talk about. I think now we need to look at some actual examples so that you folks can get a better grasp of how these things come together. So I'll hand you over to Vijay, who is dying to share it with you, I'm sure.
Thanks, Alex. That was a great introduction. And from DB Visit, we are all very excited to present you with version 12 preview release. And so before we deep dive into this product, let's look at certain things. See from how this the control the CLI component works. The control center must be installed. The agent managers must be installed. So there is no difference in installation of your agent managers and control center. It has to be done. Even though our new CLI is there, you have to install your control center and agent manager on both your primary and standby. Agent managers must be installed, and the control center must be installed on a separate server altogether. And the new CLI can be used either remotely by connecting through the control center or locally directly from the agent manager servers itself. So this gives you an option to run any commands directly from your control center server itself, like for your example, switchover, creation of standby databases. All these commands can be directly run from the from the control center servers itself, or you could run it locally from the agent manager servers, like you used to run DBVCTL commands. So in case of remote connections, for example, if you are running any commands from your agent manager servers, either it might be primary or standby servers, the user credentials, that is, which connects to your GUI, is locally stored for ease of use. So this is quite optional, but it saves your login information. And when it comes to DBV CLI, it's very self-explanatory. There is a lot of help that is available within each every command, and it can be run with both interactive and non-interactive mode. So you can ask it to give user inputs, or you can run it as a single command itself. So now, let's further deep dive into it. Oops. Okay, when it comes to CLI usage, so DBV CLI is our executable. So if you see here, -d is your configuration name. So for example, for Oracle, you have your DDC file. For your SQL Server, it is your database name. And for your PostgreSQL cluster, it's the configuration name that you give when you create a configuration. And -t is the database type. So when you create a configuration, the first and foremost thing that you do is, what is the database type that you want to create a configuration for? So for example, if you're creating configuration for Oracle, you use Oracle. For SQL Server, you use MS SQL. And for Postgres, you use PG SQL. And command is nothing but what is the command that you're going to run. For example, apply logs, send logs, new, start, stop, whatever the commands might be, which we'll see in detail in the coming slide, in the coming demo. And subcommand is nothing but what are the other commands that are available within this particular command. For example, if you're using observer, what are the commands that are there for the observer? And whether it's if it's an email configuration, what are the other subcommands that are available along with the options? So this is your CLI. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears now and directly take you into the demo aspect of it. And then we can come back to the presentation and start looking at how API commands are run, and then we'll look at API examples as well. So for example,
just before you get underway, VJ, I'll just remind everyone that if you do have any questions as VJ goes through this stuff, because there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that VJ is about to show. If you do have any questions, please put them either into the chat or into the QA, the special QA chat, and we'll get to them when we can. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. So if you see here, this is my GUI, so version 12 GUI. It's kind of similar to your version 11 GUI with all the, options and functions available in the same place. But this is a preview release, which can be easily seen here. So this is something which is very important, as Alex mentioned earlier. So this is a preview release and not to be installed on your customers' production systems, but it is production ready. So I have Oracle, SQL Server, and Postgres running on the same control center. Now let me go into this console. So for example, when it comes to the command line interface, the structure of the command line interface, you can divide into 4 parts. So one is system level commands, another is Oracle, another SQL Server, and the Postgres. So the 4 levels. So one is the system level, Oracle commands, SQL Server commands, and Postgres commands. For example, this is a command which is, for example, let me run this command again. /dbv CLI ls. ls is nothing but list. So this is going to list me what are all the databases that I have, and what is my primary server, what is my standby, whether the observer is on or off, whether you're using, what is the value for auto update, and what is the interval that has been set, and what is the time gap between primary and standby. For Oracle, it gives directly this information. And for example, wall streaming is for my Postgres, and you can see here, this is a configuration name, and it says this is in the streaming mode, and it's in sync. Same for SQL Server as well. And if you look at here for SQL Server, it says not available. The reason why it's not available because I don't have my standby database created yet here. And apart from this, what is the sub command that I can run with this? I can also run this command like this. So this is going to tell me what is my DB states on both primary and standby. For example, here it clearly tells me that for test 01, which is my Oracle, my primary is online, my standby is in recovery mode, and for wall streaming, that is your PostgreSQL, and the type is clearly given here as well. For example, you don't have to remember your configuration names because the configuration type clearly mentions whether you're using Oracle, SQL Server, or Postgres. And for Postgres, it says my primary is online, my standby is hot standby, and it's in streaming mode. And like that, you can give the command. So this is one of your system level commands that you can run. But next command that I'm going to show you is we'll see commands for Oracle, SQL Server, and Postgres. The moment you start with specific database level commands, that's when I start to include my configuration name to it. For example, let's say //dbb CLI -d. -d is your configuration name, test01. And then I say LGR. So now you might ask, how do I know what are the commands that exist? To get to that, we can say help. So when you type help, what happens here is we thought about it really well for this. For example, this command that I ran, -d, is for an Oracle database. So it lists all the command helps for Oracle alone here and your global options, that is your system level commands that are available here. So this is a very good example. For example, if you don't give a configuration name, it's going to list you the help for Oracle, SQL Server, and Postgres commands. But when you provide a configuration name and ask for help, it is going to look at what is the configuration type, whether it's an Oracle, SQL Server, or Postgres, and then give you the exact options for it. And now let's say I want to run a log gap report. So here I can run log gap report in two different ways. Either I can run it as log-gap-report, or I can run it as LGR. So the another important thing here is, so the server that I'm running this, it is nothing but this is my server where my control center is installed. So it is not my primary, it's not my standby, because I don't have any databases running here. So this is where just my control center is running. So when I run my command, it will automatically, so -d test01 is my Oracle database. And when I say LGR, it is going to run my log gap report. So this would give you a clear example of how I can run certain commands from what do you see, from the CLI itself directly. The exact, like for example, let's say let's go back to your help command here, and then look at certain other things. For example, here I can change my auto update interval directly. I can create my standby database. I can run a DR test. I can add an email. I can show my license keys. And I can also set up new configurations as well here. So when I set up my new configurations, that's when you might have to use the -t flag. -t flag is nothing but your database type flag. So -t flag will tell you which type of database configuration that you want to create. And then you either use new or set up to create the configuration. For Oracle, you create a DDC file. And then same with your observer and other commands that you can. So let's look at a few more commands from here. Okay, here it clearly says auto update requires a subcommand. So this is very, very important. So it just not throws you an error, but it also tells me what is the subcommand that needs to be provided and the options for the subcommand as well. For example, here there are two options for my subcommand, which is show and edit. So this is where we were talking about, where it's much more interactive and much more easier to use, such no prompt or dynamic interactive modes. So that's what we are talking about here. So now auto update, let's say show. Oh, let me clear the screen so that I can run this again. So auto update show. So if you see here, I can clearly see a local agent connection can only used for this operation is executed on the source host. So this is it says that if you're going to run it from the source host for auto update, you have to run it from a local agent, which is your primary server. And it clearly tells me what my primary source host is as well. So if you want to run it as a local agent, run it from Aura C API 1.qa.cz. But there again, it also tells me what is my auto update interval and what has been set to. Let's say if I have to run the same command from my primary. Just a second, I'm just connecting my server here. Okay, so cd-pt, db visit, StandbyMP, bin direct. So that's where my dbv CLI is there. dbv CLI minus d test01 auto-update show. So here it clearly tells me the same information, but it also gives me one additional information that it does not give you here. In my Odyssey, when I run it from my control center, it gives me what is a PID where my daemon is running as well. So that's an additional information that it gives from here. But other than that, if you look at it, there is no changes or anything of that sort that is going to affect your outputs, whether you run it from your primary server or from your control center server itself. Now let's edit this parameter. So if you see here, it clearly gives you how to edit these values as well. So for example, if I have to change the auto update interval, I have to enter and change it. I'm going to change it to 300. And once it's done, I enter and then I press tab to finish. It's going to tell me to save this. So if I have to do it with the no prompt mode, it is not going to ask me for a confirmation. But if I haven't used any no prompt mode, so that's the reason it is asking me for confirmation. So now the auto update interval is changed. Now we can check. So it is now enabled for 300 seconds here. This is one of the changes that we can do. But other than that, let's also look at a few more commands as well for Oracle before moving into SQL Server and Postgres. Let's look at, okay, let's look at the, what do you say, open read-only command or restart command. So here I can say /dbv CLI minus d test01. I can say restart. Let's see what happens. Now it's smart, right? So it's going to tell me which database that you want to restart as well. So whether you want to restart your primary database or you want to restart your standby database. So you can choose that. But at the same time, if you want to restart it directly, for example, you don't want to, for it to choose, you don't want to do it in interactive mode, you can directly do it as well. So how am I going to do that? That's where the documentation comes into picture. So you can easily do that from my documentation here. So this documentation will clearly tell you, Oracle. So here you can choose what is the role. If you mention -- role, either as primary or standby, it is going to immediately. So, and you can also see an example provided here. So here I am restarting my standby database. So similarly, I can also do the same here as well. I can enter. So it is now restarting my standby database, which is the host Aura C API 2.qadev.cz. So these are a couple of examples that I'm just trying to show you. Similar to that, there are other commands like, for example, you can also do a switchover, failover. All these commands can be directly performed from using CLI itself directly. The major advantage being, irrespective of whether you run it from your primary or standby, it is going to execute those commands based on your inputs. And so in earlier CLIs, for example, even with version 11 CLI, for DBBCTL specifically, if you look at the previous versions, version 10 and version 9, you might have to run certain commands only from primary database. For example, if you have to restart your database, you have to run specifically on primary database or specifically on standby database. If you have to run a log gap report, you might have to run only from your primary database, because the log gap report command with DBBCTL cannot be run on the standby database. But the new CLI is smart enough to understand that where it needs to go and where it needs to connect, and then provide you with that particular specific information. So this is about CLI for Oracle. Now let's move on to SQL Server. So with SQL Server and PostgreSQL, this is the first time we are introducing command line interface completely integrated with the product. So this is something specifically new. So now, for example, let me see VBV CLI -T MS SQL new. So now, I'm trying to create a new configuration here for MS SQL. So now it is going to guide me through the process that you exactly do as your GUI. So now I'm going to choose my primary database server, primary instance server for SQL Server, SQL Demo 1, and this is my instance name. And for example, this is my database name and standby database. Oh, no. So here I made a mistake now. So with this version, what you have to do is you have to come out of it and then redo this command again, because I have changed it. But now let's do this again. SQL Demo 1 is my primary chosen, and report server is my database name. To MySQL. So if I leave it as blank, it is going to use the default directory, which is C:\program file StandbyMP backup directory. So now I need to provide a license key. And remember, the license keys for version 12 are completely new to than the version keys for version 11. So you have to ensure that you provide version 12 license keys alone. So it's completely different. So now I'm trying to create, let's see the console server here. Okay, see this data, both the databases are online because I activated it for my previous demo. That's the reason it's showing as online. Otherwise, what will happen is it's going to show me whether my primary is online, my standby, it will show as not present. So that's how it has to show. But since both the databases are online in my configuration, it is showing it as an online here. But let's do a CST here quickly. /dbv CLI -D. So AdventureWorks is my database name. So now it is asking me for the source backup directory, standby backup directory, the file locations, log locations. It is also asking me whether I will have to enable my automatic standby update and the interval. So I'm going to give the interval as 180 seconds. And yes, enable the observer, create the standby database. So the another key thing here is, even though it is created in CLI, it interacts with my GUI as well. And you can see, you will be able to see the tasks that being propagated into my GUI as well. So whether you're running it from CLI or API, the task will be propagated to the GUI automatically so that it will be reflected there directly as well. That's advantage here. So we can perform other tasks. For example, I can also try to do a switch over. So yes, confirm switch over. Yes. And as you can see, the switchover is performed. So all the tasks directly can be performed directly from the GUI or from CLI. And here I am not even logged into my database servers or instance servers to run my command line interface. I'm using my control center server to run all my CLI commands. So it's kind of, you can use one server to run all commands that are related to any of the databases platforms that you're running, irrespective of whether it's Oracle, SQL Server, or Postgres. That's the greatest advantage here. Now, let's look at a few other commands as well. So same here. So it is going to clearly show me only the commands that are available for SQL Server because I have provided -d option before providing the help, which would recognize that AdventureWorks database is a SQL Server configuration, and it's going to give only options for my SQL Server databases, SQL Server commands. Now I can look at one specific command. For example, if you want to know what are the backup locations for your so it clearly tells me what are the custom backup locations for my primary and for my standby. So what are these custom backup locations? These are locations where your transaction log backups are taken on the primary. And this is the location where the transaction log backup is transferred from my primary to standby. So these are the backup locations. Now let's look at a few more commands here. This is cool. This is a cool command, actually speaking.
It's great fun watching this when you're used to DBV CTL, right? I mean,
Yes.
you and I obviously, you and I have been working with DBV CTL for many years now, and it's very cool watching how different and more intuitive and more interactive this new version of the command line is.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, see here. So I just typed dbv CLI instance. Now it's showing me an error saying that the available commands are list, show, add, edit, and link. So this is specifically for SQL Server. So I can say list. And it clearly tells me the statuses of my primary SQL Server instance and my standby SQL Server instance. Let's see if there are any difference between list and show command. So here what happens is it's going to specifically look at what is the specific instance that you want to connect to, and then it shows my connection status there, whether it's connected or not. That's the difference between list and show command. And I can add, edit, unlink, everything can be done directly from the CLI itself. So you don't have to use your GUI if you don't want to. And everything can be done. So the reason why I keep repeating that we can do everything from the control center server itself, that for you to know how easy and how advantage these options are that can be run directly from your control center server. Now, I think we have, let's move on to Postgres. So before moving on to Postgres, let's look at dbv CLI list. So when it comes to Postgres, we have two configurations here. One is called wall streaming, which is in streaming mode, it doesn't sync. Another one is the wall archiving mode. Here, the standby database is not available. So let me quickly switch back to your GUI and show you here. So if you see here, while streaming, it is still active. It's a streaming configuration. Your standby is hot standby mode, and it's in sync. For the wall arc configuration, I have not set up any standby database yet. But before trying to do that, let's look at something from wall streaming itself. Saying let's -t wall str. So it's going to show me the commands only for PostgreSQL. And if you look at it, these commands are not case sensitive at all. So I can, here it might show us in uppercase, but I can use lowercase as well for my configuration. So it's not case sensitive. And let's look at a specific command here. So when it comes to streaming configuration for Postgres, send logs and apply logs doesn't work because it's in a streaming configuration, because we create a replication slot on the primary and the data is pulled from standby using this replication slot. And here we can show something which is much more easier. Let's see. Do a switchover. Oh, the reason why it is showing me that the switchover cannot be executed is probably this replication is doing something. That's the reason it's showing that it cannot be executed now currently, or the license is invalid. See here, the configuration is not licensed. So I might have to add a license key. License add. There is no command license or edit. So these are the commands that are, see, for example, the reason why I'm making these mistakes is for you to show how easy it is to figure out what the command is. It's quite simple and straightforward. So I'm providing a license key. This license key is already used by a different pair, so I have to use another license key now. Oh, sorry. I think I used the same license key. And let me give another license key here. I missed a character. Yes. So the license is successfully added now. Now I can run a switchover. Now I can run a switchover. Yes, the switchover is completed now. So if you look at here, so now PG demo 1.2 is become my primary and PG demo 1.1 has become my standby. So this is how easy these commands are when you run directly from CLI. And let's look at one more command here. So the main thing is observer. So if I have to, so even your observer configurations can be changed directly from the CLI itself. So you don't have to log into your control center to make any changes to your observer. So I can go ahead and say edit. So now the same way I have to choose which one I need changed. For example, I'm going to change the check interval from 60 seconds to 120 seconds, enter to confirm, and then number of failed attempts to 10. Send the Slack notifications enabled. And heartbeat time, I'm changing to 10. And once I finish editing, I just press tab. I'll save all this. All my observer settings are saved now. And when I again show this, it's going to clearly tell me what are the changed value. So these are things that I've changed. I've changed heartbeat time as well. So the observers settings can be changed only per configuration, because if you have to change anything, you cannot change the observer in a global level. So everything has to be done at a configuration level. So that's the reason we provide -d option here. Okay, I think we are quite tight on time. Let's move on to APIs. So when it comes to API, so what I'm going to show you is how easy it is to run API commands or integrate API with your existing monitoring software or your existing application directly from DBvisit itself. So I'm going to show you using Postman, which is a software that we use for APIs, API testing and everything. So I'm going to show you with that. So if you look at here, there are options for the APIs are much more simple and straightforward. It does not complicate things. The parameters for those values for my API are also very simple and straightforward. So you don't have to have too many configuration details, or you don't need to have a big file with all the configuration settings and everything set up. The configurations are quite simple and straightforward and easy to set up as well. So let's go directly to APIs. For example, this is one of my examples here. You see here, I'm running a log gap report for Oracle, and it clearly tells me, it gives me a pretty JSON output on what my log gap is. And imagine if you integrate it with your application or your monitoring software, it could provide, you could run this, integrate this with your own software for every customer configuration so that they themselves can see their log gap reports without having to interact directly with the existing GUI itself. So you don't have to give access to your GUI. Rather than you could just point them to your APIs, and then they could use those APIs to get information directly from your control center itself. Now, let me show you a few commands from APIs. So yeah. Okay, so this is for my Oracle here. So I'm going to choose, okay, let's, since it shows a SQL Server, so if you see here, so this I'm running a sync for my SQL Server. And what I'm having is I'm just adding a configuration ID. The configuration ID is nothing but, for example, let's see here. So configuration ID is 4. This is where I see that configuration ID. And I'm just going to run a sync command. And then it is completed. So if you see here, the synchronize command is completed. And then let's go to switchover. So here I can choose what configuration I want to run switchover as well. For example, let's say I don't want to run it for EMP, I want to run it for AdventureWorks. The configuration ID is 5. So see, it clearly tells me. Okay, the reason why it's giving me this error is because there are no scripts available here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this. And then okay, I think I'm missing a bracket here. Okay. Okay, this is giving me again an error. Okay, I'm not going. Oh, okay, yes, now I got Okay, the reason for this error is because I'm not passing my values properly. Let me look at a different one and then run it for you. Let's go to Postgres and then I'll run it in a different environment altogether. That's fine. So here, let's go to switchover. And then let me run the same command here. I think, yeah. Yeah, the reason for the same error is because I'm not having the scripts for source and target files here. That's the reason it's failing. Let me change that. See, for example, here from this, it's very simple and straightforward here. I can change my script locations here directly from 1 and 2 so that it can easily give me what are the scripts that are available so that I can run the switchover directly using the scripts. But unfortunately, these scripts are not there currently. That's the reason it is failing. So let's go to Oracle, which is much more simpler now, DB environment. And then let's run open read only. Body, and then configuration 1. It's going to send me a request now. So now, if you look at here, if you could hear my standby database is in read-only mode now. And then now what I can do is I can restart my standby database. Restart my standby database directly from here. So each and everything is just a API call here. For example, if you see here, there's a restart. I have my body here, role is standby. So the commands are exactly similar to your CLI commands. So here I provided role as standby, and then I'm just going to restart. So now this is going to restart my standby database and put it back into recovery mode. Yes, now my standby database has been restarted. And let's look at the GUI automatically refreshes, but I'm not that patient. So that's the reason I'm refreshing it manually. So see here, it's going to immediately do it. So let's go back to Postgres, and then let's see if we can run a CST for the WAL archive mode. So the body, the configuration ID is not 1. So the configuration ID for WAL archive is 6. So yes, it is successful. And now you can see that the WAL archive mode standby has been created, has already been created. So as you can see, running API commands directly from your either directly with your application itself or from any monitoring services tool or anything, it's much more simple and straightforward and easy to do it. And the values or parameters that are being passed for this are much more simpler and straightforward. For example, even with your CSD for Oracle, you might require only minimal parameters that are needed for you to change in your standby database, unless until you want to change major variety of things. Other than most of your configurations would be identical with your primary. So the changes are going to be minimal. So it's easier for you to integrate and run directly using your API or from your CLI directly as well. So these are some of the things that I wanted to show you regarding Oracle SQL Server and Postgres for APIs. And let's go back to the presentation here. So the new improvements for CLI, API, strengthen both ISV, MSPs, private cloud solutions. And because the CLI is a powerful new syntaxes that is integrated for all Oracle, SQL Server, and Postgres, and even for APIs, everything is integrated for your Oracle, SQL Server, and Postgres needs, and it allows streamlined integration into your complex workflows as well, which was not possible in earlier versions or earlier releases of DB Standby. This is the first time they are trying to do it, and which is made accessible for you much more easily. With API and CLI, you can have all your deployments in a clean template. Like for example, you can have it as a Ansible scripts and or CloudFormation templates where you can easily deploy it directly from anywhere you want. And you can standardize your DR across Oracle, SQL Server, and Postgres, and then so that you don't have to look at different solutions for different products. So you can integrate everything together with Standby MultiPlatform. So now we're going to give you a quick poll now. So Erin, if you're there, can you just start the poll?
Sure thing. Just 1 second. All right, can you see
here's
that?
Yes, here are the questions. So what is the DR technology do you mainly use? So please feel free to answer multiple options. And the second question is, what database monitoring do you use? So we'll give you around 30 to 40 seconds for you to answer that.
Just while folks are answering that, I just wanted to say thanks, Vijay. That was great. That was very interesting. You know, it's amazing how different the product interacts through the new CLI and API compared to what you know, what we've been used to, what obviously our more experienced users have been used to over the years. I also just wanted to announce that because one person has asked in QA, and I'm sure others will be wondering, a recording of this presentation will absolutely be available to you. We're going to send that out to all attendees either tomorrow or on Monday at the latest next week, and you'll be able to follow Vijay along with what he presented today.
Yes, hope, yeah, so the poll is done. Okay, here are the next steps. So if you want to discuss this further, you can book a time with our US APAC sales head, Kelly, or our EMEA sales head, Pierre, for this. So you can scan the QR codes directly there, and then you can book a time with them. And you can download the preview, test the feature in and out, and provide feedback on improvements. So I'm just going to reiterate what Alex said earlier. This is not a production release. The build that is being provided to you or that you're downloading will expire on 25th of February 2025. So it's going to not work after 25th of February. And so we also have an hackathon. So show us how we have used our APIs to streamline your workflow and claim a price. And the price is very, very tempting price. Actually, it's a nice 3D printer. And so the username and passwords for that is that. And there's a URL provided to you as well. You can do a screen grab right now, and then you can also do it later. And the presentation will also be sent to you, which will have this URL and username and passwords. And feedback, that is very, very important for us, because that's when we will know what are how our products and how the features or the new features work for you. How is it helping you to, what do you say, move along with your DR journey further, faster, and make it much more reliable. And if you find any bugs as well, that is also a fantastic thing for us as well. So you could write to us at preview12@dbvisit.com. So when you write to us, you explain to us what is the issues that you're facing, or what is the features, what are the product features that you want to discuss further, or what you like about this particular version 12 CLI and API. We're open to any type of conversations that would help both of us in this as well. So So please email us at preview12@dbvisit.com. And I don't have anything else. I think we are right on time, I think. So if you have any questions, please ask those questions in Q&A session. We'll be there for the next couple of minutes. If not, you all have a great day ahead.
All right, we don't have any questions so far, so I think that's done. Thank you both, Vijay and Alex, and thanks everyone for joining today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, folks. We'll speak to you again real soon.